All right, bank stocks, they're kind of holding their own today, dipping a little bit here. The expectation is that if the Fed moves, it will be a minor move today, maybe a quarter-point hike, and that will do little to dissuade these banks or to put them under renewed pressure. There's no way of formally knowing. Just that Ken Langone, who was here a little earlier, says it's still a mess for the banks and will get messier. Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, kind enough to join us right now. He sits on, among other crucial committees, the Senate Finance Committee. Senator, great having you back with us. Ken Langone, the co-founder of Home Depot, Senator, was saying we're not over this bank problem yet. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't think we're over it yet, but part of the problem is they're creating secondary problems here. When they say, okay, we're just going to bail out and make whole all the people that we know and that we have a relationship with in all the big banks, and we may not do that on the smaller banks, that causes stir in all the smaller banks and stores and everybody else that has an account there that exceeds $250,000. So then they try to step in and say, okay, no, we want to stabilize everybody on it. Then everyone says, what's FDIC insurance? What does that do? And what they're doing is their initial reaction has created further complications. They're trying to be able to settle it. Our banking across the country is very stable, very strong, very good assets across the country, and we have good liquidity across the country. But there is no bank that's out there that can have a rush on the bank right away and to be able to have liquidity 100%. There's no way you would be able to do that. You couldn't run a business on it. And so the challenge that we've got now is we need regulators to do their job, but not overdo their job, and we need banks to have some stability. And with the Treasury Secretary constantly tinkering with it and FDIC tinkering with it, it makes it really hard to predict.
You're talking about Janet Yellen, Senator, and she was of the opinion, I'm paraphrasing here, that if you back up deposits beyond the $250,000 for individuals, $500 million for couples, you're less likely to see runs at regional banks, some of whom are in fine shape, but of course fear begets fear, and people want the safety of a big bank, so they go to a big bank. You stop that, she says, if you increase these protected deposit amounts. What do you say to that?
Yeah, there's several options. Obviously, the protected deposit amount has increased over the decades. So remember, it started at $2,500 is where it started, and so that has gone up to $250,000 over the decades now. That amount could change in the future. I think initially we need to be able to just reinforce to everyone that our community banks and our regional banks and our larger banks are in very good condition. There are some exceptions, obviously, like what SVB was doing and how they were doing it. There's a lot of questions for their board of directors, there's a lot of questions for their leadership there, but also for the supervisors and the folks that did audits there. We need to be able to ask the questions, why didn't you notice things that seem to be very obvious after the fact to look back at? So those are fair questions to ask, but in the meantime, to diminish all banks, I think is a bad idea.
You know, as a prominent Republican senator, and I ask this of Republicans wherever they are, Senator, but I had Ken Langone here, the big Republican himself, and he says that the drama around, Donald Trump has to end. His time has come and gone. What do you make of that?
I think people are going to make their own decisions on this, quite frankly. If I talk to Oklahomans, and I do a lot on it, I have the Republican Oklahomans, they'll say, half of them will say, we love everything that he does. Another half will say, we like the policies, we just don't like all of the things that came with it. We're looking for something else. And I think people will be able to decide that in the days ahead. Really, people decide, I come back to over and over again, this basic policy. What is it you're wanting a president to do? They're wanting a president that's going to really go out and fight this, or they're wanting a president that's going to go and say, I've got a set of solutions. And it's going to determine if people are angry or if they're fearful, quite frankly, coming in the next election. Are they afraid and they really want to say, we're out of control in the border, out of control in the economy, out of control with the debt and deficit? Yeah. Who's bringing ideas that are going to solve this, or who is just going to take on the other side? People will pick that.
So when others are saying that Donald Trump might get the nomination, but that he would almost assuredly lose in a general election because of this perceived baggage, do you agree with that?
It's hard to be able to tell right now, Neil. I would tell you if 3% of the Republicans decide they can't vote for Donald Trump for whatever reason, then he loses in a general election. Because if just a small group of Republicans say, hey, I can't vote for the Democrat, but I also can't vote for Donald Trump, then it becomes a big issue, obviously, for any Republican to be able to win. You've got to have people actually engage and participate on it. So whoever is the nominee has got to have broad support across all sectors. And Republicans, as you know, don't all think alike. But you've got to have broad support across all sectors of Republicans to be able to say that's a person I can get behind their policies and how they're going to actually execute it.
Because a lot more than 3% of Republicans didn't vote for Donald Trump last time.
So that becomes the issue for the next November. But again, I don't get to pick that. I have one vote like everybody else does, and we'll let everybody step out and be able to vote.
Fair enough, and that's a fair position to take. Senator Lankford, very good seeing you again. Thank you.
It's great to see you again, Neil.